U.S.-China trade tensions continuing. Bloomberg is reporting that the White House is looking to limit the amount of money invested in Chinese stocks within the government pension fund. The director of National Economic Council, Larry Kudlow, talked about it yesterday.
What we're looking at actually is investor protection, U.S. investor protections. You're quite right, transparency and compliance with a number of laws. There have been complaints by the stock exchanges about this. The SEC has heard complaints. So we've opened up a study group to take a look at it. But we're very early in our deliberations.
This says Washington has added 28 companies to this export blacklist over their role in the country's crackdown on the Uyghur Muslim minority group. High-level trade talks are set to begin on Thursday of this week. Once again, joining us right now is senior advisor for the Trump 2020 campaign, former White House senior advisor for strategic communications, Mercedes Schlapp. Mercedes, good to see you this morning. Welcome back.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So what's your take about these human abuses going on in China? We've known that this is happening for some time, that the Chinese were rounding up Muslims, 1 million people, putting them in so-called re-education camps, which some people say they are a lot worse than that, as you know. Do you think this should be part of the trade conversation?
Well, I will tell you, President Trump addressed the issue of human rights, especially in what we had seen in Hong Kong at the United Nations in the past few weeks. Obviously, this is very concerning, I think, for the United States. I mean, I can tell you, my husband, Matt, was over in Hong Kong with the Hong Kong protesters, where they made it very clear. They said, please thank President Trump for what he's doing, because he's been the only president who's been tough on China. And, you know, it's one of the things that President Trump has been able to do successfully, which is one of the many things that he's been able to do successfully, because he's been able to put pressure on the Chinese when it comes to this issue of trade, and basically saying, look, we need to come up with a fair deal. We need to be able to ensure that there's free and reciprocal trade. We're done with y'all stealing our intellectual property and our technology. And, you know, past presidents have failed. And so the president's position on China has been tough, because he has applied tariffs on them. And you've seen the economic slowdown that has happened in that country. Yeah.
Meanwhile, this is, you know, this is really interesting to see what has taken place in terms of domestic politics, because for a while there, both sides of the aisle agreed that the president was right to push back on China, and the president was right to stop this, or at least try to stop the theft of intellectual property. And yet now, with the impeachment inquiry, you're not hearing a lot from the left. U.S. Ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, ready to testify now behind closed doors to 3 different House committees as Democrats try to hide the identity of the Ukraine whistleblower. I want to get your take on that, Mercedes, but first, here's what the president said about this yesterday.
First of all, the impeachment inquiry is a scam. The mistake they made, the opponents, the opposition, the Democrats, the radical left, deep state, whatever you want to call them, they came out with a whistleblower report before they saw the conversation. Had they waited one day, Nancy Pelosi wouldn't have made a fool out of herself. What they did is unthinkable. What they did to this country is unthinkable. And it's lucky that I'm the president, because I guess, I don't know what, a lot of people said very few people could handle it. I sort of thrive on it. You can't impeach a president for doing a great job. This is a scam, and the people are wise to it.
Mercedes, what's your reaction to all of this? And I just want to point out that typically for 214 years of America, when you have an impeachment process, it is handled in the Judiciary Committee. That's where the jurisdiction is, the Judiciary Committee. But Nancy Pelosi gave it to Adam Schiff to do it in the Intel Committee. And that's why we are seeing all of these closed-door hearings where the American people can't really hear any of the testimony from these people.
That's right, Maria. I think that there's 2 stories here. One is you have President Trump, who has been incredibly transparent in this process. He made the transcript public immediately, right when Nancy Pelosi was moving forward on this impeachment inquiry. And then on the other side of this, it's the Democrats just crafting this false narrative behind closed doors, where they're pushing this out to the public in terms of talking about impeachment inquiry, yet they won't even hold a House floor vote because they know that politically it could be a disaster for these moderate Democrats in Trump districts. So it really is a challenge, I think, for the Democrats. But more so, what is so disgusting is the fact that the Democrats continue to try to build out this narrative on, well, there was a quid pro quo when the call happened. They just jumped the gun without facts, without being credible. And I think the president is saying, look, here's a transcript. It's very clear that even the Ukrainian president says that there's been no pressure that has been placed on the Ukrainian president. Because I can tell you, I've been in the room with President Trump when he has said and has talked about just foreign aid in general, and how many of these countries take the foreign aid and their corrupt governments and they misuse our funds. Yeah. And so the president tries to be very responsible when it comes to this issue of foreign aid. And I can tell you, when it comes to the president and Ukraine, for instance, I mean, it was very clear that it was separated, that the president did nothing wrong.
Well, the other issue about Adam Schiff is that he told us he never met the whistleblower. And then we learned that, in fact, he did meet the whistleblower. And there was a period of time there that the whistleblower had reached out to Adam Schiff's committee. And then there was an 18-day period before it was actually brought to the IG. So I'm just wondering if the Democrats coached the whistleblower in terms of how to answer questions and how to testify, the way they coached Christine Blasey Ford in the Brett Kavanaugh hearing.
I mean, it would be interesting to get all the facts, but sadly, Schiff can't get his facts straight. He just lies when it comes to saying he didn't have direct contact with the whistleblower. He comes up with a fabricated dialogue about the president and what happened with the president and the Ukrainian president on the call. I mean, it is a disgrace. And the mere fact is that Schiff should resign because of misleading the public when it comes to this issue on impeachment. And I can't believe Nancy Pelosi is supporting Schiff on this effort. I mean, the fact is she's a weak leader, and she has fallen into the hands of the squad and lying Schiff that I think has created, chaos within the Democrat Party.
Yeah, and then, of course, there's John Brennan, who says he wants to protect the identity of the whistleblower, but we know that he's feeling the heat because of his role in the framing of Donald Trump and the CIA's role in that Russia probe and the so-called collusion, which had the country up in arms for 2 years. But I wonder if the president is making a mistake on his Mideast determinations. The president is defending his decisions to withdraw troops from northeast Syria this morning. That's garnering opposition from both sides of the aisle. A number of GOP lawmakers, as you know, have spoken out against the president's plan, including Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. The president wants to bring the troops home. I know it's been a campaign promise, but Mercedes, is he walking on eggshells here with this decision? Is this a big mistake?
No, I mean, the president obviously has been very firm in his decision. He also has talked about ending these endless wars, making a shift, a strategic shift when it comes to our involvement in these complex wars. And so, in essence, the president's saying, Turkey, the European Union, we need you all to share more of this burden. And the president's made it very clear. He's also sent a stern warning to Oregon and basically saying, look, if there's any missteps here, we can destroy your economy, and I will do it. And the one thing about President Trump is that he'll stay true to his word.
All right, 2020 on the horizon. Who is the best person to go up against Trump on the Democratic field from your standpoint? Is this going to be Elizabeth Warren versus President Trump?
You know, it could be. I think that the Democrats need to figure out where their heart is. And what we're finding is that there is that divide within the party where there is that attraction towards an Elizabeth Warren because of the fact that she is pushing forward a very far left agenda. and when it comes to, basically going after corporate America, business America. And that is, I think, incredibly disturbing, not only for the corporations, but specifically for the workers who are basically, our corporations are right now excited to invest in America. I mean, they're the ones that have brought in, you look at our economic success story because of President Trump, his policies. And then you would find a contrast when it comes to Elizabeth Warren just villainizing anyone that has to deal with being successful in America. Yeah. And so I think that would be incredibly problematic for the Democrats. And I think for Biden, there are the realities of what you're seeing between his son and his engagement with Ukraine and with China, and that there really is a need to investigate in that area. And he has become a weakened candidate. He barely can defend his son, Hunter. And at the same time, he has no future vision for America. He only talks about the past, which is that of the Obama years, which, as we know, was something that the American people rejected when President Trump won in 2016.
Mercedes, thank you. Good to see you this morning. Thanks very much. Mercedes Schlapp joining us this morning from Washington.